While I'm in the dressing room, 5 minutes before I come out, I'm breaking my gloves down. When I come out, I have supreme confidence. I'm scared to death. I'm afraid. I'm afraid of everything. I'm afraid of losing. I'm afraid of being humiliated. But I'm confident. The closer I get to the ring, the more confident I get. The closer, the more confident. Once I'm in the ring, I'm a god. No one could beat me.
That was Mike Tyson, the most feared man in boxing history. But before Iron Mike, there was this.
I used to hide in between abandoned building walls in Brownsville. I used to hide between walls to not get picked on.
A fat, lisping, bespectacled kid from the most dangerous neighborhood in New York. The other kids called him Little Fairy Boy. So how did that boy become Iron Mike Tyson? And more importantly, what was he running from? This is the story of a psychological experiment conducted on a traumatized child, a weapon built from a broken boy, and a 50-year-old war between two people living inside one body.
I always cry before I fight. I'm getting ready to change into somebody I don't like.
"178 Amboy Street, Brownsville, Brooklyn. The neighborhood with the highest rate of violent crime and incarceration in New York City. This is where Mike Tyson was born in 1966. He described himself as a fat Poindexter, as someone who was almost effeminate shy. He had a lisp, he wore thick glasses, and at 7 years old, when someone tried to steal his lunch, he ran home. He never went back to school again.
I still feel like a coward to this day because of that bullying. That's a wild feeling, being that helpless. You never forget that feeling.
Home was no better. His mother, Lorna, drank heavily and cycled through violent boyfriends. By Tyson's own account, she fed him liquor and drugs to get him to sleep. He slept in his mother's bed, even with another man by her side, until he was 15. And then there's this. At 7 years old, an old man snatched Mike Tyson off the streets and assaulted him. He told no one. He tried cocaine at 11 years old. By 10, he joined a gang called the Jolly Stompers, cleaning out cash registers while older members held victims at gunpoint. By the age of 13, he'd been arrested 38 times. His father, Jimmy Curly Kirkpatrick, was a pimp from North Carolina who abandoned the family around Mike's birth. In his autobiography, Tyson wrote something that tells you everything about how a child's mind processes abandonment.
Curly was a pimp. I so desperately wanted to be the son of a pimp because in my neighborhood, that carries weight.
His mother died when Tyson was 16. He visited her in the hospital, saw flies buzzing around her, pulled the covers over her, and left. He never went back. No one even called him after she died. Years later, he said something shocking about her death.
One of the best things that ever happened to me is that my mother died because my mother would have babied me. There's no way I would have ever learned to stand up for myself.
That's not callousness. That's a survival mechanism built by a child who learned that love was dangerous, that needing someone was weakness, that the only person who would protect Mike Tyson was Mike Tyson. Before Cus D'Amato, before boxing, before any of it, there were the birds. After nearly being beaten up by a gang of older guys, young Tyson found acceptance by helping shoo pigeons from rooftops for the neighborhood's cooler guys. He bought his own birds with stolen money and kept them in an abandoned building. Then came the moment that created a fighter. A neighborhood bully Tyson later identified as Gary the Bully stole one of his pigeons. When Tyson confronted him, Gary pulled the bird out of his coat, twisted its neck, and rubbed its blood on Mike's face. A friend pushed him. "You've got to fight him, Mike." So Mike threw a right hand and Gary went down. Then he remembered how cool a local fighter looked doing the Ali shuffle, and he started shuffling. Everybody started clapping.
My first taste of applause.
But here's what most people miss about the pigeon story. It's not just the origins of his fighting, it's the key to his entire psychology. Think about that. Pigeons are dismissed, despised, urban vermin. And this boy, who was also dismissed and despised, found himself in them. They were the first living things that needed him without hurting him. At his peak, Mike Tyson kept 300 birds in Arizona, spent $400,000 a year on them, and when his favorite pigeon Julius died and a garbage collector disrespected the bird, Tyson knocked the man unconscious. At 13, Mike Tyson arrived at Tyrant School for Boys, a reform school in upstate New York. 5'8", 200 pounds, in handcuffs. He was placed in Enwood Cottage. They called it the Bad Cottage, reserved for the most incorrigible boys. The staff thought he was mentally disabled. His reading was at the 3rd grade level. He attacked boys, he attacked guards, he threw hot water on people. Then Bobby Stewart showed up, a former National Golden Gloves champion, working as a counselor. He first saw Tyson as 2 staff members were leading him across the grounds in handcuffs after he'd beaten up another boy. Tyson knew that Stewart had been a boxer, asked him to train. Stewart set conditions: better grades, better behavior. In just 3 months, Tyson's reading level moved from 3rd grade to 7th. During sparring, Tyson broke Stewart's nose with a jab. Stewart needed the next week off because his eyes were so blackened. That's when he made the call to an old connection, Cus D'Amato. Before the meeting, Stewart spent an entire week teaching Tyson specific moves designed to impress Cus. On the drive there, he tempered expectations. Cus may not even like you the first time. Cus D'Amato watched Tyson spar for 9 minutes. Just 9 minutes. And he made his proclamation. On the way to the car, Tyson asked nervously, "Can I come back?" Stewart said, "Guess what he said? Bobby, barring outside distractions, that is the heavyweight champion of the world." Tyson couldn't believe it. Then he started crying. Stewart told him, "See, you're not a scumbag. You're not a loser." That night, Cus told his partner Camille, "This is the one I've been waiting for all my life." Later, he told the boy directly,
"I've been thinking about you since 1969. If you meditate long enough on something, you get a picture. I conjured you up with my mind, and now you're finally here."
What happened next in that house in Catskill was not boxing training. It was the systematic psychological reconstruction of a human being. Cus D'Amato believed that boxing was 75 to 80% mental. Before Tyson ever threw a punch under his guidance, D'Amato spent 2 to 3 weeks just talking.
He didn't let me box. He would just talk to me about fighting and the psychology of fighting. Fighting was nothing physical. It was all spiritual.
D'Amato drilled the same concepts into Tyson's mind every night. His cornerstone teaching:
Heroes and cowards feel exactly the same fear. Heroes just react to it differently.
his most famous teaching:
Fear is like fire. You can make it work for you. It can warm you in the winter, cook your food, give you light. Let it go out of control and it can hurt you, even kill you. Fear is a friend of exceptional people.
He told Tyson, "Your mind is not your friend, Mike. You have to fight with it, control it, put it in its place." He taught Mike out-of-body experiences, a meditation technique for detaching from your emotions and seeing the fight with clarity. But here's the part nobody talks about: the hypnosis. Cus D'Amato employed John Halpin, a Manhattan hypnotherapist who had worked with D'Amato's fighters for nearly 20 years. Tyson's first session came at 12 or 13 years old.
As a 13-year-old kid, he would sit me down and put me under hypnosis, and he would tell me that I am the most ferocious fighter that God ever created.
When Tyson turned professional, he was hypnotized up to 3 times a day, before sparring, before training, and before fights. D'Amato would be present during these sessions. When Tyson was under, Cus would directly speak to his subconscious.
You're the world's greatest fighter. You are a scourge from God. The world will know your name from now until the eons of oblivion.
He also introduced Tyson to autosuggestion, a technique by French pharmacist Émile Coué. Every morning and every night, Tyson would recite it up to 20 times.
Every day, in every way, I am getting better and better. I'm beautiful. I am magnificent. I am invincible. I am a god.
Tyson described the result bluntly.
D'Amato went from taking me, a guy with no self-esteem, to a megalomaniac.
But here's the most haunting detail. On a podcast, when Tyson was asked if Cus ever taught him how to shut off the hypnosis, how to turn off the programming, Tyson simply said,
No, he didn't.
"The programming was installed in a child. It was never deactivated." D'Amato died, and the weapon he built kept firing without guidance. Remember the staff at Tyrant's school who believed Tyson was mentally disabled? By 15, he was reading Nietzsche.
I had been reading Nietzsche and thought I was a Superman. I could barely spell my name, but I was a Superman.
D'Amato's personal library became Tyson's university. He made him study Alexander the Great, Napoleon, Sigmund Freud, Sun Tzu, Leonardo da Vinci. He read Zen in the Art of Archery aloud to the teenager. In prison, Tyson sat with a dictionary beside every book, looking up the words he didn't know. He read Mao, Dostoevsky, Shakespeare, Voltaire. His favorite was The Count of Monte Cristo.
I really identified with Edmond Dantes. He had been framed by his enemies and sent to jail too. But he didn't just sit there and brood. He prepared for his eventual success and revenge.
His identification with Alexander the Great was the deepest, but Tyson's unique psychological lens saw through the glory to the wound beneath.
Alexander, Napoleon, Genghis Khan, they were all mama's boys. That's why Alexander kept pushing forward. He didn't want to have to go home and be dominated by his mother.
Think about that. Tyson saw history's greatest conquerors not as superhuman, but as psychologically wounded men who were fleeing their mothers, just like him. Cus D'Amato died of pneumonia on November 4, 1985, at Mount Sinai Hospital in Manhattan. He was 77 years old, and Tyson was 19. Tyson wept at his bedside and said,
"If you die, I'm not fighting anymore."
Cus had once told a camera,
If he weren't here, I probably wouldn't be alive today. He gives me the motivation, and I will stay alive, and I will watch him become a success, because I will not leave until that happens.
He left only 11 months before Tyson became the youngest heavyweight champion in history.
When Cus died, I lost my spirit. I don't think I ever did get over his death. With Cus gone, the punches seemed to hurt me more. When Cus died, I started hitting the bottle more.
What followed was a systematic dismantling of everything Cus had built. Don King took over. Kevin Rooney, the last living connection to Cus's teaching, was fired. And without the psychological framework, without the maintenance, the weapon started misfiring. The Buster Douglas loss, the greatest upset in boxing history. Tyson barely trained. His corner didn't even have ice for his swollen eye. Kevin Rooney's analysis was devastating.
Part of him wanted to fight, but another part of him wanted to get knocked out. These two parts were fighting each other. One was saying, "Quit, go down." The other was saying, "No."
The Holyfield ear bite, Evander Holyfield offered the most astute psychological reading.
Fear causes people to do the easy thing, the quickest thing. Everybody knows how to get out of a fight. All you do is foul. Then you can say to the other guy, "Well, you didn't beat me."
The bite wasn't madness. It was the behavior of a man who had completely lost the ability to cope with adversity in the ring. The very thing D'Amato had drained out of him. The spending was just as revealing. He earned an estimated $300 to $400 million in his career. He spent $4.5 million on cars in 3 years, kept 2 Bengal tigers at $70,000 each, bought a $2.2 million gold bathtub.
So many of my problems stemmed from thinking I deserved shit after being so poverty-stricken growing up. More than anything else, my success stemmed from my shame about being poor. That shame gave me more pain than anything in my life.
Every act of self-destruction, spending, the addiction, the biting, driving a car at high speed into a tree without wearing a seat belt, was the boy trying to destroy the armor that he had built from the inside. The transformation wasn't a single moment, but the ultimate catalyst came on May 26, 2009. His 4-year-old daughter died in a treadmill accident. His first instinct was to reach out for a gun. But at the hospital, seeing other parents in similar grief, he found restraint. Then came the toad, the 5-MeO-DMT, venom from the Sonoran desert toad. He's now smoked it more than 80 times. The first experience terrified him.
I was scared to death because I had a spiritual death. I died. Before I did the toad, I was a wreck. The toughest opponent I ever faced was myself. People with big egos often have low self-esteem. We use our ego to subsidize that. The toad strips the ego.
He married his partner Kiki 11 days later. his relationship with Cus's memory has deepened into something more complex.
Everybody thinks I'm up there with this old sweet white Italian guy. Cus was a vicious, cantankerous beast. He was just a bunch of rage. He was always plotting revenge. All of it came out of vindictiveness and bitterness. I was too young at that time. I didn't understand the nuances, but now I know what was going on.
Yet, the love endures. When asked about what he would write in an email to Cus, Tyson became emotional and simply said,
"How did I do?" That's what I'd say. How did I do? He made me fall in love with myself.
So what was Mike Tyson really running from? He was running from who he was and who he'd been programmed to be. The crying before the fights was the boy. The destruction that came in the ring was the program. The pigeons, the books, the lisp, and the shyness, all of those were the real Mike Tyson, trapped inside a weapon that was never really given an off switch.
I'm a conqueror now because I've conquered myself and my demons.
The contradiction hasn't been resolved. It's been accepted. The most feared man in history still keeps pigeons because they were the first living things that needed him without hurting him.
No one knows who they are because if you knew who you were right now, you'd be really limited. Life is about change.
The boy between the walls never fully came out, but he finally stopped running. And maybe that is the lesson. Not how to build a weapon from a broken boy, but how to survive being one. If this story hit you the way it hit me, drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe if you want more deep dives like this. Fighter psychology, origins, the stories behind the fights. This is the Fight Point. I'll see you on the next one.